Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our weekly community briefing. Hopefully everyone's staying cool. Want to welcome a few new guests, some new faces to the briefing. We have our Commissioner of Department of Public Works, DPW, Commissioner Jeremy Robinson is here with us, and our City Engineer, Mary Robinson, is here with us. So happy to have them. And happy to give the Deputy Mayor and the Chief some time off. Agenda for today, as usual, we'll go over the COVID data. We're going to provide some updates on the economic and workforce development front. We're going to talk about the census, as usual, give a quick overview of the COMPSTAT crime report. We're going to talk about road reconstruction, which is why these two are with me today. 'Tis the season. And we will give an update on our Columbus Circle Action Group, and then finally just some reflections on an announcement we made relative to COVID this week that we're excited about. And then, of course, we'll open it up to questions. So on COVID, just looking at the numbers, in the city of Syracuse, and this data is through July 8th, we are at 1,665 cases. That's up 64 cases over the past week for a 3.8% increase. Contrast that with 1,406 recoveries in the city. That's up 209 in a week for a 14.9% increase in recoveries. So by percentage, recoveries more than tripled the growth in new cases, and that's a good trend that we hope continues. I want to remind folks that, as usual, we have testing at the Syracuse Community Health Center until 5 p.m. today and again tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we are also testing today at Tucker Missionary Baptist Church, which is located at 515 Oakwood Ave. And that is happening until 5 p.m. I want to thank Pastor Draper at Tucker, 100 Black Men of Syracuse, who also are involved in the testing over at Tucker today. It's great, so thank you. We've been sharing these slides from the state's early warning monitoring dashboard. So this is part of what we review during our regional control group daily calls. Just a few things to point out. I think it's all things that the county executive has talked about, but just wanted to point to. On the monitoring dashboard, you can see that we are seeing an increase in hospitalizations. We saw that earlier this week, but as the county executive has pointed out, it is attributable to a single long-term facility with a rise in cases that have resulted in hospitalization specifically to protect memory care patients. So unique situation. We do expect that those hospitalizations may continue for a lengthy period of time, so we will likely see that those numbers stay up. But again, I think we have a good understanding as to why, but it's always good to keep an eye on that. Another page on the dashboard looking at positive tests per day. As you can see in this screen, we are staying at or below levels that they've been at for more than 5 weeks. So we're holding steady there in a good way. We're 2 full weeks into phase 4 right now, if you can believe it. And of course, what's new today in phase 4 is that Destiny USA is reopened. We're excited about that. We know that people have been anxious to get back in there and to do some shopping, and from the city's perspective, as a significant sales tax revenue generator, we're excited that people are able to be in there and able to be safe while they're in there, because again, that has to always guide our decision making is health and safety. We continue to monitor business affirmations in the city for the reopening process. As of the Wednesday report of this week, we were at 589 city businesses who have affirmed. That number continues to grow. So we continue to see positive progress, which is, again, especially as we look in other parts of the country, is significant and is encouraging. And the good news is, as evidenced by Destiny, it's allowing us to do more. It's important that we continue to be safe while we're doing it. But one of the areas that we had been really concerned about, something that we've been really proud to build up over the past couple of years, is our summer youth employment program. And for a while, it looked as though we were going to go throughout the summer without being able to conduct that program. Like a lot of other things, it's modified, but I am really excited to say that we will have a summer youth employment program this year. We literally just received funding thanks to the support of New York State and Governor Cuomo, as well as the support of County Executive McMahon. So we have almost $1 million in funding from the State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance that will enable us to hire 450 young people between the ages of 14 and 20 for jobs this summer. These will be a combination of both on-site jobs as well as virtual or remote jobs. Majority on-site, but some remote as well, which is consistent with every other employer. With that, though, especially given the short amount of time, in order to take full advantage of this funding, we need employers. We are calling on employers throughout the city of Syracuse and the region today. If you want to bring a young person into your office or into your organization remotely, if you need help this summer, if you want to help a young person this summer to get some valuable job experience, we have the funding. We just need the placements. So all you need to do is to be able to agree to accommodate one or more young people for the summer, and we will again get you the individuals and the funding. So if you're an employer and you're interested in bringing on some summer youth, you can go to cnyworks.com, or you can call 315-473-8250. Again, 315-473-8250, and that will take you to CNY Works. And also, if we do have some young people or parents watching, we do have a good pipeline of young people that are ready to go to work, but we can always use more, so you can also call that number if you are a young person or know of a young person that's looking for a summer job. It's really important for both building your network, building your experience, but also in this really difficult time, it's a great opportunity to do something positive. So really excited about summer youth employment. When we talk about employment, and particularly youth employment, it is really a critical component of our Syracuse Surge strategy. As we're making investments to compete in the new economy, we need to make sure that our young people are positioned to get those jobs in the new economy. So we continue to work on parallel tracks, giving young people opportunities for training and for experience as we continue to make investments that will help our region to continue to be competitive in the new economy. And in that spirit, I'm excited to announce that it was just announced today by Empire State Development that we received funding as part of a competitive process through Empire State Development. They announced $1 million in funding statewide for smart city initiatives. Of that, Syracuse was awarded $200,000. We were one of only 3 cities to receive the larger grant amount of $200,000. And again, that's to advance a number of our smart cities initiatives, specifically related to this grant. We're going to use $50,000 for vacant structure monitoring and inspection. So actually, we'll be partnering with the private sector and deploying essentially smart building technology that will help us to monitor our vacant structures. We know that oftentimes vacant properties result in fires and criminal activity, and to be able to monitor those and to use technology to monitor those allows us to do it in a safe and in modern way. So $50,000 will go to vacant structure monitoring and inspection, and $150,000 will go to algae bloom monitoring and treatment in Skaneateles Lake. So we're actually going to be deploying unmanned aerial systems, essentially drones, that are going to monitor Skaneateles Lake for harmful algae blooms. Touches on a number of priorities, of course, protecting our water quality in Skaneateles Lake, but also advancing our investment in the UAS sector. So we're excited to partner with a number of stakeholders on these projects. Again, of course, Governor Cuomo and the team at Empire State Development, as well as some local research partners, including Syracuse University and New Air. So we take a lot of pride in the fact that we are New York's flagship smart city, I think this grant funding is a testament to the progress we continue to make with Syracuse Surge and with our Smart City strategy, and again, really appreciative of the support that our team here at City Hall has given this work, the Common Council has given, and again, good progress to report there, and look forward to talking about what comes out of these projects. Quick update on Census. Not as excited about this update because the progress does continue to slow on the self-response rate. Last week we were at 49.1% self-response rate. This week we're at 49.2%. Progress, I suppose, but not nearly what we need. For better or worse, we continue to stay on par with our upstate counterparts. Buffalo's at 49.4, Rochester's at 47.5, Albany's at 49.6, but we need to continue to do more. So we're gonna continue to bang this drum and to encourage people to fill out their census form, encourage their family and friends to fill out their census form. We have a lot on the line in terms of federal funding, and we only have one chance every 10 years to do this, so we want to make sure we do it right. On COMPSTAT, again, a reminder, our COMPSTAT reports are available on syracusepolice.org. I think we did see some slight improvement on the overall crime statistics week over week. Last week we were at 7% decline in overall Part 1 crime. This week we're up to 8%. That's the good news. The bad news is what continues to keep those numbers from getting better is our violent crime, which we know all too well. We are at 1% overall increase year over year on violent crime. Again, the property crime, we're at 11% decrease, so that's good, but we really need to make progress on violent crime. I know a lot of our community partners, the Syracuse Police Department, others are working very hard on that. Again, good to see some overall progress, but we really need to address violent crime, and not just in the short term, in the long term. It continues to be a challenge that plagues us as a community and plagues many other communities, and one that is unacceptable. So we're going to continue to work hard on that. Okay, road reconstruction. Again, I want to give our guests an opportunity to give some updates, but as we've talked about, all of the things that aren't moving forward, there are a number of significant investments that we're making that are moving forward, and road recon is one of those. Throughout the course of the spring, we've been filling potholes. We've been doing prep work, some minor road repairs through June, but now we're into the big projects, and we have a number of them that we're going to talk about today. We're going to start with, again, our city engineer, Mary Robison, who has been working for years on a project that we're just about to get started on Salina Street, which is part of a bigger federally funded project involving both Salina Street and State Street. So Mary's going to tell everyone a little bit about that. Mary.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to be milling and paving Syracuse's Main Street, which needs a much-needed resurfacing. The project starts on Monday. We're going to start on Salina Street at Martin Luther King Boulevard and work northerly all the way up to North State Street. We're going to be skipping over the 300 and 400 block of Salina Street while Water Department replaces a water main. We also did lined the sewer in that area, which was in very poor condition. So this is a dig once type effort. So the water work will be completed before we complete the resurfacing in that area in the 300 and 400 block of Salina Street. The total project also includes State Street from Martin Luther King Boulevard to James Street, which will be completed in 2021. We will do some work later this summer, such as some sidewalk repairs, ADA corners, and some full-depth asphalt repairs. This project is being funded with federal transportation improvement money. Total project cost is about $9.7 million. 80% federal funding, and right now 11.7% Marchicelli funding. Total project length is 3 miles. During construction, we'll maintain traffic. Occasionally, we may have to have detours set up for specialized work where the entire street has to be closed, but you'll be given public notice as to when that's going to happen.
Great. Thanks, Mary. This is a big project. Again, as Mary said, Salina Street is our main street. And I know every year, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do it this year, but every year I've painted the green stripe before the St. Patrick's Parade. I've lamented the condition of Salina Street, and I'm hopeful that the next time we paint a stripe, it'll be on a brand new road. But again, from Martin Luther King Boulevard all the way up to the north side where Salina and State converge. So really exciting project, complements a lot of the investment that we've seen both downtown, but increasingly heading south to the south side. Think about some of the big projects, the STEAM School project, the JMA project. I think it's going to, again, leverage those investments and hopefully catalyze additional investments. So thank you, Mary, for all of your hard work. I know it's years in the making. I'm excited to get it started, and certainly thank our federal delegation for that funding. So those are a couple of the big ones, but we have a lot of other projects that we're working on, a lot of other roads that are going to get treatments, from mill and paves to slurry seal. And to explain that and more, we're going to introduce our Commissioner of the Department of Public Works, Jeremy Robinson. Before Jeremy gets started, I just want to take this opportunity to compliment Commissioner here and specifically his team from the Sanitation Department, who has been able to keep up the schedule of trash and recycling in spite of the serious heat that we have outside right now. And so, Jeremy, great job to you, and please extend that to the Sani team.
Thank you, Mayor Walsh. And yes, I'm happy to report that we have a bunch of projects scheduled for this road reconstruction season. The team has been working really hard this season. We started our prep work in mid-April, filling in dips and cracks and potholes for this upcoming season. So the work started in April, so we've been plugging away ever since. Started our first street reconstruction in June. We milled and paved Sky Home Terrace, which is on the east side of Syracuse. For those who are not familiar with the mill and pave project, or what mill and pave means, it's basically us taking the top layer of asphalt off the road and replacing it with a new set of asphalt. The typical mill and pave project should take about 7 to 10 days. We just completed a large section of COMPSTAT over in the university area, from Euclid to West Colvin. I think the university area is very appreciative to that. That road was really in rough shape. We also have a major reconstruction starting Monday on Westcott, from north end of the business district to East Genesee Street. So the residents up there who frequent that area will be happy with that. That road is also in rough shape. Our goal this year is to mill and pave a little over 9 miles of road this season, which will equate to about 30 different streets, which is amazing. We normally get about 18 on a normal year, but this year our team is really ramping it up and trying to do as much as we can. We're going to concentrate on some major roads on the east side of town. The north side, we're going to do Grant Boulevard from Wheaton to Butternut Circle, which is a major intersection. The east side, we're going to do Meadowbrook Drive from Holbrook to Euclid, which is a major street over on the east side. South side, we're going to do Midland Ave from West Onondaga to Tallman. The west side, we're going to do Shiner Street from West Street to West Onondaga. So we should hit every side of town on major thoroughfares, along with all the other streets we're going to be doing. And with all that said and be done, we're going to do 45 miles of slurry seal this year. So needless to say, road reconstruction is on its way, and we're going to try to do our best to make the city proud.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner. We get a lot of questions about road conditions, potholes, and we've spent a lot of time over the past 2.5 years that the Commissioner's been in his position and I've been in mine, and we've made real progress. I mean, again, just looking at this year, in the midst of a global pandemic, we are going to be paving nearly over 50 miles of road between the slurry seal and the mill and pave, and we know we need it. It's increasingly a data-driven process now that we have our citywide analysis of road conditions, which we're going to update annually now with the Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council. So each year, I think we've seen consistent improvement from DPW and from our road crew. So thanks, Commissioner, for that.
Thanks, Mayor.
And again, thanks to your team as well. Lots more to come. Just a few final updates. On Columbus Circle, I announced in late June that we were establishing an action group. I'd hoped to be able to share the names from that group today. We're just finalizing the last few names, but we are moving forward with that action group. I've said consistently that the status quo in Columbus Circle is not acceptable. Changes need to be made, but we want to make sure that everyone who wants to have a voice in that process gets an opportunity to be heard, and we think that this, as a continuation of our dialogue circles, this action group is going to allow many of the different stakeholders that we've engaged up to this point, again, to have some final say in what the final determination is around the circle. I'm pleased to say that, again, we'll announce the representative, the members of the group probably, certainly early next week, hopefully Monday, but we have great diverse representation. We have representatives from Onondaga Nation that are going to be participating, representatives of our local Italian-American community. We will have new Americans on the group, members of our Black community, our Hispanic community, faith-based organizations, local government representatives, and again, some of whom participated in those dialogue circles. So we will have those names early next week. Those meetings will start very soon. We'll start them this month. The goal is to be completed with the process in probably mid-September. There'll be about 8 meetings total, about 2.5 hours each, and a number of different formats. It will all be virtual in order to maintain health and safety. But again, making real good progress there and moving it along as quickly as possible. So encouraged about the progress we're making there and look forward to reporting more. Finally, before we open it up to questions, just coming back to COVID for a moment, you may notice, I'm sure, how could you not, this big red button on my lapel. We had a really special day yesterday in City Hall. We welcomed a guest who I'm proud to say is a friend of mine, Carrie Mae Weems, who, if you don't know about Carrie, you should make it a point to look her up. She is a local treasure. She's an incredibly talented artist, internationally renowned, and she lives right here in Syracuse. And she reached out because she was watching what was happening with COVID, was particularly concerned about how it was disproportionately impacting communities of color, not just here in Syracuse, but around the country, and used her talent and her platform to advance a powerful public art project, which is called Resist COVID, Take 6. So in addition to the button here, which simply says COVID-19 is not a hoax, we have door hangers here. We have fans, which certainly come in handy on days like today. We have signs here. And again, it's, I think, at a time when many of us are tempted to let our guards down, when we are seeing things reopen, again, we can look no further than other states around the country and know that this is not the time to let our guard down. And in fact, this is the time to double down on doing what we know works. So what do we know works? Maintaining social distancing, wearing your mask, washing your hands, sanitizing your hands, and getting tested. I think that's an important additional piece that you've heard the county executive talking more and more about, especially recently around our young people. The testing capacity continues to grow, and we need to take advantage of that. So, again, I want to thank Carrie Mae Weems for lending her talent and treasure to this really important program. I'm really proud that it's launching in Syracuse, but is not limited. It's going to be launching in a number of other cities throughout the country. And again, the timing couldn't be better for this message. So with that, I will open it up to questions.
So today we've opened up the mall for everyone. How do you balance the triad of things where you want safety, you have customers that want to come in and shop there, but at the same time, a number of these businesses that came in today came in to basically shut down? So how do you kind of balance the three?
So that's been the challenge throughout the pandemic. How do you balance maintaining health and safety while also acknowledging the impacts that the steps that we've taken to maintain health and safety have caused us other challenges. Again, I've talked quite a bit about the fiscal impact of the city of Syracuse. We know that people have been personally impacted through certainly health issues, but also job loss. It has had so many different impacts, but as we try to mitigate those negative impacts of the virus, what I'm proud that we in Syracuse and in Onondaga County and New York State have always insisted upon is that before all else, we have to prioritize health and safety, and we have to look to the data to drive our decision making. And that's how we got to the point where we're at today, including with Destiny. And you saw that was a difficult process to get there, but that is it's a unique facility. We do, I think when we look at the ability to socially distance, that the size of that facility certainly helps. You saw a lot of attention recently on maintaining good air quality. That happens to be another area where as a region we have real expertise. And so it is a balancing act. There is always risk when you're increasing the amount of interactions that people are having, but I think that we've done everything we can to mitigate that risk. And again, because of the system and the process that we have set up, if we start to see an impact of that activity, we can use that data to adjust our strategy. So again, selfishly, I'm thrilled to have the facility open and hopefully to start generating some new revenue, not just for the city of Syracuse, but for our constituents, those that are working at the mall, those that are operating businesses at the mall. And again, hopeful and cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to maintain health and safety along the way.
As far as the businesses, any discussion between you and Pyramid, just maybe do something to help with the rent? Because I know that's a lot of what the issues are, back rent that they're not able to pay just because they haven't had the business.
Yeah, we have been working from the very beginning with the business community. One of the first things we did out of the gate was create our COVID fund through the Syracuse Economic Development Corporation. We went through that funding very quickly. We're currently looking at some other opportunities to provide some local funding for businesses. We understand that that oftentimes landlords are in a difficult position where they need that rent payment to maintain their business. So again, you have to find the right balance. We're not going to be in a position to necessarily help landlords directly, but we're trying to connect them to resources, philanthropic resources, state and federal resources, and the mall is no different. We'll work with them. We've been in constant communication with the ownership. We've been in communication with a number of the businesses, and we'll troubleshoot wherever we can.
Question for Jeremy about the road reconstruction. So you said we're doing 9 miles this year of mill and pave. I'm trying to figure out where the money's coming from for all that. We had $4 million last year, and it typically is about $1 million to pave a mile of road, if I'm not mistaken. Is there more money in the budget this year for road reconstruction, or are we stretching the money farther this year?
Well, this year I've been tasked to do a little more, just try to take off the burden of the way the world is today with COVID and the BLM movements and things like that. I'm just trying to do a little more for the city of Syracuse. So This year, we cut back on some of the curbing that we're doing, so we put that money into paving, so that's where the money's coming from.
So those 9 miles also include the 3 miles from the project? Mary
That doesn't
talked about?
include that. That's
So
a different
total-
project.
Total, we're talking about 12 miles of mill and pave this year?
12 miles plus the 45 miles of resurfacing that slurry's doing.
Okay. And that's all on the $4 million budget?
Yes.
No.
Well,
The Salina and State project is a separate fund source. It's through the Transportation Improvement Program, otherwise known as TIP funding,
that's 9.7 million.
9.7 million.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Yeah, as is always the case with roads, you know, it's a combination. That's why you have engineering department working on certain projects, DPW working on others. But no, I credit the commissioner here and our city engineer for really stretching those resources as far as we can. It's important, especially now that resources are tight. And Mary, any other federally funded projects to this year, just as we're keeping track of?
Yes, we're doing the Hiawatha Boulevard sidewalk expansion project, which also includes milling and paving Hiawatha Boulevard from Van Rensselaer to Solar Street. And we're also doing a small project on University Ave right now between Waverly and Genesee. That's fixing, that was a connective corridor project years ago, and there's some pavers that are having issues. So we're fixing some of the elements that are failing and doing a little bit of milling and paving there as well.
So, Chris, we can get you the full list for the year, but we wanted to make sure we talked specifically about the Salina and State, because that is starting again when, Mary?
Salina is starting Monday morning.
Monday morning. Thanks.
Mary, you mentioned funds quickly drying up. Any indication of federal aid, which you've been calling for a while now?
Yeah, we are. I spoke with Congressman Katko earlier this week. He continues to believe that that some action will be taken. It appears to be. We're looking at hopefully sometime in July. Maybe it slides into August. I continue to be cautiously optimistic. But again, until it's done, we're going to have serious concerns. And as you've heard, it's not limited to the city of Syracuse. Onondaga County is in real trouble. We've been getting sales tax payments coming in. They're not where we need them to be. So we also know that the state's in the same position. So that $12+ million in state aid that they're withholding right now, those are that all of that has the ability, has the potential to be devastating for us. But we're holding out hope that the federal government will step up. And again, right now, the best we can guess is July, late July, early August.
Given the concern with young people really not taking COVID seriously, the social distancing, how concerned are you? What is your level of concern with the reopening of Destiny?
Well, I think that generally speaking, I continue to be very concerned, which is why we continue to talk about it, despite our numbers looking good, because we know in other areas that's not the case. Young people are young people, and I know when I was in my late teens and early 20s, my decision making wasn't always the best, and so I'm sympathetic to that. But just as my parents and others held me accountable for my bad decisions at that age, we need to hold our young people accountable for their bad decisions right now. So I'm concerned as it relates specifically to the mall, whether they're at the mall or in a house or in a field. As long as they're maintaining appropriate distancing and practicing all the precautions that we talked about, we think that they'll be okay. But if they're ignoring those things, there's a high likelihood that they're going to get sick. And I think what they need to be reminded of is that it's not just about them and them getting sick. It's the potential of them getting family members who may be more vulnerable sick. So yeah, I continue to be very concerned about it.
With places starting to reopening, contact tracing has become a staple, essentially. It's going to be impossible to trace someone just buying at Best Buy or whatever, but if an employee, if a cashier tests positive for the coronavirus, what are the steps?
Well, I mean, I think that the process for contact tracing is well documented, and the county health department has done a really impressive job with it. So they're going to continue that process. Obviously, as more things reopen, that has the potential to be more burdensome. But that's part of the state's metrics to allow us to continue down these phases, is to have sufficient contact tracing capacity. So somebody gets sick, they're going to go into quarantine. They're going to do contact tracing. They're going to identify anybody who was in contact within 6 feet of that person, and they will likely have to quarantine. So the process is no different. It's just the more that reopens, the more challenging it gets. But we knew it going into it, and again, that's why having sufficient capacity is so important to continue that reopening process. And again, to the county's credit, they've done a great job with it.
Should Destiny have reopened sooner?
Well, I certainly helped make the case that given where our data was, that it was my opinion, and just that personal opinion, based on what I knew about the facility and based on where the data was, that I thought that an argument a solid argument could be made to reopen. But again, as I've said from the beginning, there's no playbook here, and as we go through those regional control room calls every day, we don't always agree on everything. But in spite of that, one thing that we have agreed on generally is that we need to try to stay on the same page, and ultimately it is the state's call and the governor's call about when to reopen. And while I may, if I was in that position, I may have opened it earlier. You look at what's happening around the country, and I don't feel any need to question the way in which the Governor Cuomo and New York State have gone about this process, because again, nobody had a playbook. But when you look at the playbook that New York State has developed and that Onondaga County has developed, it appears to be producing good results, and I'm not going to second guess those.
Thank
Hi, Mayor.
Andrew?
The city of Buffalo took down its Columbus statue today. What's your response to that, and do you foresee Syracuse's Columbus statue remaining standing after your action group does its work?
Well, I've said that as part of our action group, the decision as to what to do with the statue will be part of that, the outcomes of that action group. And among those potential outcomes, there is certainly a possibility that statue could come down. That's what happened in Buffalo. What I'm encouraged by, just based on what I've read about Buffalo, is that it did appear to be a decision that was supported by the Italian American community. And I think when you look here at what's happening in Syracuse, the fact that, and again, we'll be able to share names soon, but the fact that we have buy-in into the process from the Italian American community, I think bodes well for the ultimate outcome. But again, I've been well documented with my own personal concerns about the statute, but I've also been clear that I think that we've developed a good process that started with the dialogue circles and now is moving into the action group that will ultimately get us to a final conclusion. And I'm confident that it won't be one in which everyone agrees with. I'm also confident that everyone, when we get to the end of the process, will hopefully feel respected and heard. And as I've said, my goal is for it to be a healing process for our entire community and to be a model. And I still believe strongly that we can be a model for other communities that are dealing with similar issues.
And without the police chief here, I'm going to direct two investigation-related questions to you to the best that you can share. In a week since the first string of Rye Day arrests, any further in the past week and what's happened in the week since? And then the destruction done to the city the first weekend of protests. We haven't heard of any arrests related to any of that, the rioting, the looting.
Mm-hmm.
Any update on that investigation?
I don't have updates on Rye Day or the unrest and some of the property damage on that Saturday night, but I'll talk to the chief and tell him that he should have been here today, and he's going to have to come back next week because Andrew Donovan has questions for him.
Thank you.
All right.
Afternoon, everyone. Mayor, I just wanted to start off with Last Chance for Change hit their 40-day mark, and I know that they had some demands for reform. Just looking to see an update on the dialogue between those community members that have been pretty active here over the last month and a half.
Yeah, so Last Chance for Change was one of the organizations and groups represented in this room last Thursday for our 4-hour session that we held, where we wanted to make sure that all those groups again felt heard, and they all had an opportunity to weigh in on their collective demands and also some of their individual demands. I gave some feedback and guidance as to how we intend to respond to those demands. Some of them we already have taken definitive action on, but as a result of that convening, I committed to providing a formal response to the demands along with associated timeframes for action on those demands. And so that puts us at a formal response Thursday next week. So I've communicated to them that that's when they can expect to hear from us next.
Okay, and you mentioned in the beginning the 27% increase in homicide from year-to-date 2019-2020. I was in a Zoom meeting this morning with Assemblyman Will Barclay, and they just went through the 5 or 6 major cities in New York, and while we have a slight increase here, ones like Albany are seeing an 800% increase, and they were just really addressing violent crimes as a whole. Do you think we have an issue here in the state?
There's no doubt there's too much violent crime everywhere, and a lot of it is fueled by gun crime and the fact that it's way too easy for people to get their hands on guns, especially illegal guns. I have learned in the relatively short amount of time that I've been in this job not to come to any definitive conclusions based on a limited sample size. A few months ago at the beginning of the pandemic, we were down significantly in violent crime and homicides. That's no longer the case. Am I hopeful that those numbers and trends begin to reverse? Absolutely, and I believe they can. I do think that. I think that there are a number of contributing factors, but again, for me, this is just educated guesswork. There's no doubt that the pandemic has had an impact on people's mental health. I have concerns about how that is being reflected in violence and substance abuse and other things contributing to some of these numbers. Again, at this point, it's just an educated guess based on my own observations. But we know that long before the pandemic, we were dealing with violent crime, and unless we do things differently, we're going to be dealing with it long after the pandemic. But I believe in Chief Buckner and his team at SPD that they're doing everything they can to address it. I've said from the beginning that the solutions to our crime problems and our violence problems aren't solely and aren't even primarily found in the Syracuse Police Department, because more often than not, by the time they get involved, it's too late. That's why you see us prioritizing building a new STEAM high school. That's why you see us prioritizing youth summer employment and making investments in smart city technology that will help us to be competitive in the new economy. We need to do a better job connecting people to opportunity, and also, as we've talked about during the pandemic, address the underlying systems, racist systems, unequal systems that are exacerbating all of the issues that we're facing today. So there is nothing that is of a greater concern to me than the violence that we see in this community. But I don't say this to minimize it, but just to put it in a broader perspective. As you pointed out, this is a problem that is not unique to the city of Syracuse, and in fact, many other communities, including in upstate New York, are dealing with worse conditions than what we're dealing with in Syracuse. So it's something that we have to continue to be focused on, continue to look to other communities for best practices. But again, there's no higher priority for me.
Thanks, guys.
For the Columbus meeting, you're going to have the group named next week. Are these meetings open to the public? Are they private?
So we haven't scheduled the actual first meeting yet. We're going to announce the full list next week of participants. Those sessions are not open to the public. They are, as you can imagine, oftentimes very emotional. I know in the dialogue circles we had tears, we had anger. These are difficult issues. But again, the whole purpose of doing it in this way is to create a safe place and a safe space for people to have honest conversations about their feelings and their experiences and how they're contributing to how they feel about this space and about this statue. And it's a process that that I believe in and that I believe is going to lead us to a positive outcome for our community.
And I'll open this up to Jeremy or Mary. I know that the Empire Trailway that's going to run through the boulevard is partially by the city. It's a state-run project, but is this going to affect any of the work that you guys do, or are there traffic concerns that this project presents itself?
Anything to say about that?
I'll let Mary handle that one.
The Empire State Trail is a state project. My projects that we're working on aren't really directly impacted by the Empire State Trail project, so I don't think we're starting on the south side of Salina also right now. So by the time we get towards downtown, I believe the Empire State Trail project will be further east.
It was just more of a question about, does the state actually outsource any of you from the city to help with this project at all, or is that a separate one? And I guess my other question dealt with traffic concerns. Is that anything that the city has to deal with while this change is being made on Erie Boulevard?
Well, we have someone who's coordinating the project for the state, but they are basically running the project.
Yeah, we've worked really well with the state. It's an exciting project. When you look at what's happening just this year. So last week we talked about the opening of the Phase 2 Creek Walk, bringing us from Armory Square South to Kirk Park. But you're beginning to see some of these trail investments converging. So you have the Empire State Trail coming in from the east. It will meet up downtown on the Creek Walk. It will take you north to the edge of Onondaga Lake and eventually connect up with the Onondaga Lake Loop the Lake Trail. And so it by connecting some of these dots, we're taking what are already recreational amenities and at least partial transportation amenities and really beginning to connect them in a way that provides exciting opportunities for people to really rethink the way in which they move around this city and in this community. So we're really excited about it. I also just wanted to go back on the Salina project. I think it's worth noting that the reason we're skipping over the 300 and 400 blocks this year is to put in a new water line. We've all talked about the importance of dig once projects to make sure that we're not coming through and milling and paving a road only to have to dig it up a year or two later to replace water lines. So we continue to make improvements, and that's one where I think probably 2 years ago that was not that was not on our to-do list. But we had a break there again. Was that 2 years ago now? In the past year or two, a big break on the 300 block, and we had been talking about the project coming down the pipe, and we said, you know what, we need to take advantage of this opportunity and do it right, and that's what we're doing. So I'm really, really encouraged by the progress we're making on our infrastructure.
Good evening. My name is Yasin, representing for I Know I Can Radio. One of my questions is, how are you able to learn from the pressure of having, saying, the whole, Black Lives Movement, and now dealing with also COVID on top of that, and now youth are also, there's a huge jump of increase of cases going up against youth. How are you able to learn from the mistakes from before, and what are some new ways that you're implementing to keep us all healthy and safe?
Sure. Good question. I learn every day in this job, and I've learned a lot over the past few months. As is the case with everything, my learning curve has accelerated. I think that one of the interesting connections between COVID and the current Black Lives Matter movement and the other related protests happening is that COVID has really helped to shine a light on the underlying systemic issues that have plagued our society for a very long time. And so we've known leading up to COVID that communities of color are disproportionately impacted by certain health issues, and we see that as clear as day with COVID. And so I think it's brought it into focus for people in a way that it hasn't before. And specifically related to the issues being discussed among these protests, particularly around police reform and accountability. And what I've said from the beginning is that police reform and accountability has been a priority for me since the day I walked through the doors of City Hall. And that's what led us through the process of bringing Chief Buckner on. That's what has driven Chief Buckner for the year and a half that he's been here. And and it has not been a smooth road because he did come in as a reform chief and has made a number of changes that haven't always sat well with everyone in the department. So that work has been ongoing. But this current moment, as I've said, what we've heard loud and clear is that we haven't done enough and we haven't done it fast enough. And so I'm trying to view this moment as an opportunity to accelerate those changes that we've already been working on. I understand, and I heard loud and clear last Thursday night that that what we've done and what we're proposing to do may not be sufficient for everyone, and I accept that. But I have no doubt that after this moment has passed and we look back on it, whether it's a year from now or 10 years from now, I stand by the fact that we've done more in the area of police reform in this administration than has been done in any recent history. And a year from now, we'll be able to point to even more that we accomplished. So I think that this this moment has given us an opportunity to accelerate and amplify the reforms and the changes that we've made. And I also just want to say that oftentimes we're forced into talking only about police reform or only about the crime that's happening in our community and what the police department is doing to address it. And I have no problem, and I actually think it's important that at the same time that we talk about police reform, we do acknowledge the very difficult jobs that our police officers have to do, and the really great work that they continue to do in spite of those challenges. So I think that if we're going to hold them accountable for when they get things wrong, we need to make sure that we highlight when they get things right. And again, especially in light of recent challenges, I'm really proud of the way that our officers have handled them. You're always going to have some resistance to change, but I truly believe we're on the right track, and I believe that those that are out in the community, that are out in the streets protesting, I consider them allies in helping us to continue these improvements going forward.
Thank you. One more question. As you see, many students now are out of school, and there are a lot of people, students are participating or any sort of activity, and they have a lot of hands in their time. And you also see a lot of gathering around, as you see cases like the north side, south side, and you see a huge increase of youth getting COVID. What is the hardest challenge you think it is for right now dealing with that? On top of trying to also get from both sides, as you can say, dealing with roads and increasing the funds just for Syracuse wise.
Yeah, as it relates to young people, we've heard it from the county executive, we've heard it from others. We have specific concerns, and the cases reflect that there are large groups of young people that are not taking COVID seriously. That's why I'm wearing a pin that says COVID is not a hoax, because some people still believe that, sadly. But again, I also recognize that at that age, I wasn't in a hurry to listen to what adults were telling me or my parents were telling me, and so I think we just have to acknowledge where they are in their lives and try to meet them where they're at and communicate on a level that they understand and respect. So we're continuing to try through different methods, and I think that, again, one of the most recent shifts in how we're communicating is talking about not just being safe, but also getting tested, because we're acknowledging that not everyone is being safe. But at least if you're going to be reckless in your behavior and put yourself and others at risk, at least have the courtesy and the respect of others to get tested, to know that if you do have the virus, to take yourself out of those situations where you're putting others at risk. So it's an ongoing process, but again, we're trying to adapt and evolve as we learn more about the virus and more about the ways in which people are responding to the virus, and we're just going to continue to work. Anything else? One more? Okay.
Just going back to your conversation with Congressman Katko about the budget deficit, really. How dire is the situation? You're hopeful for the end of the month, but from now until then, where are we?
Yeah, it's been a challenge for me to figure out the appropriate way to communicate the risk, because I don't want to be Chicken Little. We are talking about paving a lot of roads, opening up some pools, so it's not as if we're not in a position to do anything. But certain things that we're doing, we are taking on some risk based on the feedback that we're getting from our federal representatives that there is a good chance that we get federal funding. I've tried to make it clear that we have had to take some interim steps to mitigate the financial losses. Again, looking at those 100 plus employees that were placed on leave without pay. Looking at the fact that half of our pools won't open this year, and we had to go and ask the community to help us to get 2 of the 4 open. We've already had to take some difficult steps. A lot of our own summer employees that we would have helping out DPW, helping out codes, we haven't brought on. So we've already had to make some of those difficult decisions. But when I talk to the congressman, I make it clear to him. And to anyone else that will listen, that without that federal aid, it is going to be devastating on the city of Syracuse, but more importantly, on the people that live in the city of Syracuse, those that we serve. And there will be no way to make up for the losses without federal funding, without looking at cuts in service and cuts in jobs. Again, I'm hesitant to be more specific than that, because again, I want to be I don't want to overreact, and based on the information that I'm getting, again, I think we have reasons to be hopeful, but that is that is what's at stake, and we're going to continue to take steps in the interim to mitigate the impact. I talked last week about the fact that we're going to be rolling out an early retirement program soon, so we'll have more information on some of the specifics around those contingency plans, but without federal aid, the city of Syracuse would be devastated financially and otherwise. The stakes couldn't be higher.
Thank you.
Thanks. Chris? Okay. One more.
Got an off topic to end on. You're up for re-election next year. Have you considered or have you decided whether you're going to ask either of the major parties for their support to get on the ballot?
Boy, that is off topic, Chris. I try to keep my politics out of this building. All right, I was. Your question was, have I decided if I'm going to talk to both either party?
Are you going to seek either party's line on the ballot?
I haven't made that decision yet. Just as what was the case in 2017, I have to be on the ballot in order to be elected. So. I have started to put some thought towards my ballot access strategy, but I have not gotten as far as deciding, how to engage with the major parties. But, for better or worse, that time is soon going to be upon us. So, thanks for the reminder. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good weekend. Stay cool. Be safe.